When we were in our first little church, we were asked to speak at our first conference, and we were probably 28 or so at that point. The thing that interests us today is that we spoke on revival, renewal, and we had no idea that that was going to become the passion of our hearts through all of our ministry. We have renewal ministries today because this is what God has burned in our hearts. And that's when we had our first conference. Then soon after that, you took a church in upper state New York. A new church. You were the first full-time pastor in a suburb.
And we went there with about 90 people who were made up those who came once in a while and those who came all the time. And the Lord was blessed, and we just saw a lot of evangelizing going on by our people and by us leading people to Christ, and it was a very exciting time.
This was an area of GE engineers. It was Schenectady was General Electric's international headquarters at that time. And there were, the vast majority of them had never heard the gospel before. They were just young intellects. And we saw so much conversion. Wasn't that a fun time?
Oh yeah, that was just a blast. The church just grew and grew. And
we were there from age 29 to 35.
Yeah, and we met with couples in those days, a couples group, and that grew, and it was kind of the start again of how to get people together in the Word, and in how to get people together in Christ, and how the Lord did that with making strong friendships and seeing people receive Christ in that book. I remember in that group, I remember one girl was always there, always messing up the conversation. She was always getting us off track.
She'd always go at right angles to whatever we were talking about.
Arguing, and she's very intelligent. Came from one of the Eastern girls' schools at finishing school and all that. And I would just groan when she was there. But one day, I noticed in church that she had changed. She was nicer. She was not so
For several
prickly.
weeks, we saw this.
Yeah. And I asked her, I said, Betty, what's happened to you? And she said, I went into my neighbor's door to see her one day, and she said, I just stepped inside, and she was on the floor, dead. And she said, my philosophies didn't work at this point. And so she came to Christ.
And she and her husband also, and they have led Bible studies in the Schenectady area ever since, still do.
Yeah. But there came along an invitation to go to Lake Avenue Church in Pasadena, Congregational Church. And I didn't know any Congregationalists were saved. And I thought, this is interesting.
It seemed awkward at first because Ray had wanted for years to attend Keswick Convention in Upper England, in the Lake District.
Near Scotland.
And we had made arrangements, because we were poor, and our kids were 10, 11, and 12 at that point, getting expensive. So we had made arrangements with a pastor in England who has a British, who had a Baptist church, to exchange pulpits with him for that summer. He would live in our house and we would live in his. And the churches had agreed to it. We thought this was fine. Suddenly this invitation came to Lake Avenue Church. What to do? Well, we said goodbye to our people in Schenectady in June and spent the summer in England and came to California directly from England. But that meant that we were without salary for 3 months because we were in between churches. And it was wonderful how God fed us, like the ravens feeding Elijah. It was a wonderful summer.
And then I think that what we, when you're in a place like that, you look at the great art, you look at history, you get a chance to think about those things, talk about them together.
Christopher Wren's magnificent cathedrals.
St. Paul's, for instance. And it was a very, very meaningful summer to us and to our kids.
It changed a lot of our thinking. We saw more stature in God and in His doings.
Yeah. And we went to then to Pasadena, and there were professors from Fuller in this congregation, and a lot of
In
students.
fact, the Fuller
scared
Seminary,
the liver out of me. You know?
Fuller Seminary had started in our Sunday school rooms.
Yeah.
And Dr. and Mrs. Fuller were members of the church. And Leland and Wilbur Smith taught one of the Sunday school classes. And
Why?
there were a lot of spiritual greats in that
Yeah,
church.
and Harold.
Scared Ray to death.
Yeah.
But they were so good to you.
Yeah.
They were very
Very
gracious.